With the recent success of Wonka and Dune Part 2, Timothée Chalamet has solidified his status as the most promising movie star under 30. Starting off as a kid modding Xbox 360 controllers on YouTube, Chalamet has since evolved into a household name, captivating audiences with his performances across indie films and leading franchises. But his success isn't just confined to the screen because he carefully crafted a public image that made him a charming celebrity adored by many. But in an era where franchises and IPs dominate the box office and the traditional concept of the movie star is fading, can Chalamet be the last of their kind? In this video, we'll explore how Timothée or Timothée Chalamet took over Hollywood, his career trajectory, and whether he is a traditional movie star or something more. This will be both an actor deep dive and a look at the current state of the film industry because things aren't looking too great with all of the recent flops. Timothée Chalamet was born in New York City in 1995. He holds dual citizenship in the US and France thanks to his French father, and he is also fluent in French. His older sister Pauline is an actress, and his uncle on his mother's side, Rodman Flender, is a director and producer. While some critics keep labeling him a nepo baby, Chalamet's success was clearly earned through his undeniable talent and keen eye for selecting good projects. He attended LaGuardia, one of the top high schools for music and performing arts. There, he took part in many plays and musicals and even kickstarted his rap career.
Look at me, it's Timmy Tim, about to hit him with the ZTST.
By the time he graduated in 2013, he had already made a few TV and theater appearances, most notably in Royal Pains, Homeland, and the off-Broadway play The Talls. He then attended Columbia University for a year before fully committing to acting. Most of you probably first saw him in 2014's Interstellar, where he played the young version of Matthew McConaughey's character's son. He's got a few memorable scenes, but it's funny hearing Chalamet recall his reaction after watching the film.
Then I went home to my dad and I wept for an hour.
Why?
Because I just figured my part was bigger or something.
Oh,
I don't know.
no.
That year, he also had minor roles in Men, Women and Children, and Worst Friends, where critics already noted his potential of being a future star. He continued building up his film career over the next 2 years with 2 lead roles and 2 minor roles. He then starred in his final theater production in 2016's Prodigal Son and delivered his best theater performance yet, even winning the Lucille Lortel Award for Outstanding Lead Actor in a Play.
Why should I change? I've never even got to find out who I am. You want me to change? That's crazy.
He was praised for delivering these heartfelt, vulnerable, and charming performances, but he was going to take it up a notch with his next role that would change his career forever. In 2017, at the age of 21, Timothée Chalamet starred in Call Me By Your Name as Elio, a 17-year-old boy in Italy who falls in love with his father's 24-year-old archaeological assistant played by Armie Hammer. To prepare for the role, Chalamet learned Italian, piano, and guitar, which helped him put out his best film performance to date. He portrayed Elio with such emotional rawness, and it felt so real that it made the rest of the cast look like they were acting. He was just on a different level here. This was my introduction to Timothée Chalamet. His performance really blew me away, especially that final scene, which is still my favorite end credits scene in a film. Call Me By Your Name was met with rave reviews, impressive box office numbers, and widespread praise for all the actors, especially Chalamet. He even received a Best Actor Oscar nomination, making him the youngest nominee since Mickey Rooney in 1939. But Chalamet was everywhere in 2017. On top of Call Me By Your Name, he starred in Hot Summer Nights, where he was the film's saving grace. He had a funny and memorable role in Greta Gerwig's directorial debut Lady Bird, and a very minor role in Hostiles. Apparently, he was the only actor who had to audition for this role, which is kind of ironic considering all the recent news that he hasn't auditioned for anything in years, with writers always writing films with him in mind. In 2018's A Beautiful Boy, Chalamet portrays a teenager who gets hooked on meth. For the role, even though he was already pretty thin, he lost another 18 pounds, and there were many close calls where doctors had to check up on him because of his unhealthy weight. The film released to only decent reviews and poor box office numbers, but audiences loved it, especially his performance, which was heart-wrenching and haunting.
And you're just embarrassed because I was like this amazing thing, like your special creation or something, and you don't like who I am now.
He received nominations for all major acting awards except an Oscar. 2019 was another busy year for him, playing the lead in Woody Allen's poorly reviewed A Rainy Day in New York, the lead in Netflix's Henry V of England film titled The King, and a supporting role in Greta Gerwig's Little Women. In The King, he showed us he can take on more intense roles beyond his usual soft and delicate characters. This performance gave us our first glimpse of what we would later see in Dune, especially in moments like the speech scene.
Fight for that space! Fill that space! Make it tissue! Make it mass! Make it impenetrable!
But on the flip side, the way he played Laurie in Little Women showed us that charming and vulnerable characters are his specialty.
And I waited and I never complained because I figured you'd love me, Joe.
Then he was dropped into one of Wes Anderson's quirky and offbeat worlds in 2021's The French Dispatch. Starring in one of the film's chapters, Chalamet fit in seamlessly, and I could definitely see him returning for more Wes Anderson films in the future. But that same year, he starred in his first ever blockbuster, Denis Villeneuve's Dune, taking his career to yet another level. Villeneuve had Chalamet in mind from the start for the role of Paul Atreides, and he delivered one of the standout performances amongst the star-studded ensemble. The film performed well enough to greenlight a sequel despite COVID trying to stop it, but as the saying goes, the spice must flow. He had a minor role that same year in Adam McKay's Don't Look Up before reuniting in 2022 with Call Me By Your Name director Luca Guadagnino for Bones and All. He earned his first producer credit and put out a great performance as the Cannibal Drifter. And I was a little surprised not to hear much about this performance during awards season, but once you get a taste for the blockbuster life, it's hard to let go. Chalamet transitioned into Hollywood's new leading man with his next two films, Wonka and Dune Part 2. In Paul King's Wonka, he played the titular character, and King said that he was the only choice for the part after seeing Chalamet's past musical performances and even his Timmy Tim rap videos. When the film was announced, it was met with a lot of skepticism because of it being an unnecessary prequel, and most thought Wonka was miscast. But the film ended up being a pleasant surprise. It received good reviews, killed it at the box office, and Chalamet's portrayal of Wonka surprisingly worked.
Before they melted away, a world of your own.
And despite receiving a lot of praise for his whimsical and deeply heartfelt performance and a Golden Globe nomination, many still held on to their belief that he was miscast. And in 2024's Dune Part 2, he reprised his role as Paul Atreides, and what a movie that turned out to be. It was a big hit all across the board, becoming his highest grossing film to date. With such a great ensemble, everyone delivered great performances, especially Chalamet, Rebecca Ferguson, and Austin Butler. Chalamet's performance this time around definitely had more emotional weight and a commanding presence, showcasing his talent much more than in the first Dune film.
I am Paul Muad'Dib Atreides, Duke of Arrakis!
The film's success greenlit a third film which will focus on Dune Messiah, ensuring Chalamet's continued success in Hollywood. He was only paid $3 million for Dune Part 2, but he earned $9 million for Wonka, his most lucrative role yet. However, this pales in comparison to his recent deal with Bleu de Chanel, for which he was paid a staggering $35 million to become the face of the brand. And there was a campaign film directed by Martin Scorsese that was recently released. And this is where his work outside of film has played just as big of a role in his star power. Since his breakout in 2017, he's been gaining a lot of momentum, especially among younger audiences because of his unique style. His acting accomplishments are complemented by just as many fashion accolades. He was named Vogue's most influential man in fashion in 2019, GQ's best dressed man in the world in 2020, GQ Reader's most stylish man of the year in 2023, and he was the first solo male to appear on the cover of British Vogue back in 2022. He blurs the line between traditional masculinity and femininity in clothing. The best example of this being his 2022 Oscar outfit, where he wore a Louis Vuitton women's jacket without a shirt. Beyond his career and fashion success, Chalamet is also genuinely likable. Almost every interview I've seen of him has been a joy to watch. He comes across as sincere and genuine, a refreshing change from the typical PR-trained personalities, and his older videos that keep resurfacing only add to his charm. But where does he go from here, especially with the future of film looking pretty uncertain after recent flops? Chalamet's next film is the 2025 Bob Dylan biopic A Complete Unknown, directed by James Mangold. Chalamet is producing it and playing the role of Bob Dylan, even working with the same vocal and movement coaches that Austin Butler used for Elvis, which is a promising sign. With Wonka and Dune Part 2's recent success, Chalamet signed a multi-year feature film deal with Warner Brothers for both starring in and producing future projects, which should help solidify him as an A-lister. Basically, he's pretty set for the remainder of the decade. His career trajectory looks very promising. He's having a very similar career to Leonardo DiCaprio. Both actors had their breakout roles at a similar age, with DiCaprio at 19 in What's Eating Gilbert Grape and Chalamet at 21 in Call Me By Your Name. Both used their boyish looks to play juvenile romantic leads, building up quite the fan base among younger female audiences. But DiCaprio put in a lot of work to break out of these juvenile roles in the mid-2000s with films like The Aviator and The Departed, so it'll be interesting to see what Chalamet does. You can't keep playing 15-year-old vengeful leaders forever. But what's most interesting is how their careers diverge, highlighting the different eras of the film industry they come from. Both actors are beloved by directors, but DiCaprio found a lot of success after Titanic and original blockbusters, while Chalamet has been mostly successful with existing IPs. And this reflects the current state of the film industry. Today, IP is king. Each year, many original films flop at the box office, even those starring the most famous actors. Audiences are more interested in franchises and sequels and care more about the characters than the actors. Studios are playing it safe by investing in existing IPs rather than banking on individual star power to help kickstart something original. Franchises like Star Wars, the MCU, and Jurassic Park draw audiences based on their established stories and characters rather than who's starring in them. With the rise of streaming and ticket prices increasing, people have become more selective about going to theaters. They tend to reserve theater visits for must-see in theater films, which are usually blockbusters and almost always based on existing IPs. For anything else, they can wait for its eventual release on streaming, which can even be less than a month after its theatrical release. This is much different than the 80s and 90s when an original mid-budget film could succeed solely due to an actor's pull at the box office. This shift highlights the most relevant factor to this video: the death of the movie star. By movie star, we mean in the traditional sense, someone who can draw an audience to the theater by their presence alone. This kind of star power is almost non-existent now, far from what it was in the 80s and 90s. Back then, you can release an original mid-budget film, put the lead actor's face on the entire poster, and people would flock to theaters. Today, it's far more lucrative to market IPs due to merchandising opportunities, since banking on individual actors became much riskier due to cancel culture. And newer forms of entertainment have popped up, with younger generations being more invested in influencers and social media stars. Social media also influenced the downfall of traditional movie stars by making them more accessible and relatable. Previously, you'd only see big actors in their films, a few interviews, and red carpet events. Social media has taken their mystique away, making them seem more like ordinary people and lessening the appeal of seeing them in a movie when there's so much content and posts about them online. And this brings us to Chalamet's weird status in the industry. While social media has reduced the pull of many actors, it also played a major role in Chalamet's rise. Old videos, talk show appearances, and his charming personality have made him famous, but not enough to make a movie successful using his name alone. After looking through Chalamet's impressive filmography, no film has succeeded purely because of his name or box office pull. Little Women, the Dune films, and Wonka are all based on existing IPs and had many other good things going for them. If this were the 90s, films like Beautiful Boy and Bones and All might have been more successful with Chalamet's star power. And this isn't a knock on Chalamet because he still is the actor under 30, but no actors in this age group can draw a large crowd on their own. Tom Holland has had major flops outside the MCU and Uncharted. Anya Taylor-Joy has also had recent flops with New Mutants, Last Night in Soho, and The Northman. Luckily, the menu did well. Even Furiosa, at the time of writing this video, is looking to be a box office bomb even though it's a Mad Max film. And Florence Pugh has had success in a variety of non-existing IP films, but they weren't solely driven by her star power. Essentially, if Chalamet isn't a traditional movie star, then no one is, apart from the same ones from the 90s that are still working today. Nowadays, actors are stars who happen to be in movies. They have dedicated fans who will watch their films, but not enough to have a big impact on a film's success. Chalamet has a great on-screen presence, a unique look, and is a talented actor directors love to work with. He's collaborated with some of the top directors working today. And this is important because in this new era of film, the most crucial skill for this type of movie star is having a keen eye for good projects. It's more important than ever to be selective in choosing roles, whether by forging new connections with top directors or picking the right IP projects. Timothée Chalamet, along with Anya Taylor-Joy and Florence Pugh, has done well in this regard. If they continue making smart choices, they could eventually reach that level of pull that 90s actors had. But it will be less about audiences going to see a film just for them, and more that they know the film will be good because they're starring in it. So I don't think Timothée Chalamet is necessarily the last movie star, but rather the first of a new kind. The industry is evolving, and it's hard to predict where it will be in 10 years. But with the third Dune film and the Warner Brothers deal, I'm confident Chalamet will remain a relevant actor for years to come. I just hope he doesn't fully transition to blockbusters and still continues to embrace his indie roots. How a complete unknown performs will be a major indicator where his career will go from here. So there you have it, Timothée Chalamet's career and the uncertain future of movie stardom. Do you think he's the most promising young actor working today? Share your thoughts below. If you enjoyed the video, drop a like and subscribe, and check out our Patreon for some cool perks. But until next time, have a good one.